Good evening, viewers. Thank you for joining us once more for Dialogue with the Diaspora. I am Ambassador Dan Gutierrez and I will be your host this evening. Belize has had a few notable exoduses following natural disasters. For example, after Hurricane Hattie devastated Belize, many Belizeans migrated north or east. Many of them have done great things abroad and are legendary in their own right. And many have become popular Belizean focal points in their communities abroad. But outside of that group of middle-aged and older informal ambassadors is the next generation of Belizeans abroad, many of whom are doing amazing and creative things. Tonight, we have a few of them joining us virtually, of course, to talk about their journeys thus far, their careers, and their connections to Belize. Let me start with Miss Cara Young. Cara was born and raised in Harlem, New York. Her parents, Vanessa and Clay Young, were born and raised in Belize and later migrated to the United States. Cara made her debut as an actor on stage in theaters in New York and has performed in dozens of plays. She is also an actor in film and TV. Here is a short demo reel from her on-screen performances. Welcome to the show, Cara Young.
We all think you're a badass, boss.
The way you run this place,
Pretty cool shit. Whoever that dude is, I'd be scared if I was him.
You've got some serious filter issues, you know that.
Totally. My mom tells me that, like, all the time at home.
How old are you?
30. Pretty sure she wants me out the house.
All right, Cara Young. Next, we have Ravesh Suknandan. Ravesh is a 28-year-old biomedical engineer studying in Pittsburgh. Ravesh was born in Belize and topped the PSC in 2005, graduating from All Saints Anglican School. He then attended EP York High School and graduated as valedictorian in 2009. He has an interest in the intersection of robotics, additive manufacturing, and biomedical applications. He has worked in the semiconductor industry as an electrical engineer for 5 years now and is currently pursuing a master's in biomedical engineering. Our next guest, and of course we will meet him a little bit later on. Our next guest is Chef Calvin Young Lalu, who is the co-owner of Carib Cookery based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Carib Cookery has a range of offerings from basic catering to full-on private cooking events. Calvin was born in the United States to Belizean parents, Evan Young and Lynn Menzies. And of course, our final guest this evening is Nia Fairweather. Nia is an actress, writer, and creative entrepreneur. Nia was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Her father is Belizean and her mother is from St. Vincent. You can catch Nia mastering her craft on television and in films. She is currently playing the lead in a full-length feature film just released at the American Black Film Festival. The film is A New York Christmas Wedding. I have seen the film. I love the film. Nia Fairweather, welcome. Congratulations on this latest movie.
Are you feeling better now? Mm-hmm. New things are scary sometimes, but it's only because it's new. Okay? Love you.
I have never felt this before. There was a knife in my bed and I do not know how it got there. Okay, when I was a child, I would have dreams, these monsters in my dreams, but now I don't know what is a dream, and I don't know what's real, and this is why I'm here. I just need to make sense of it.
David, my fiance, I can't wait to marry him.
Okay, so what's the issue?
We've always been Gabby and Jenny.
Love is love. Is there any doubt in your mind? We embrace equality. We can't change yesterday, but today matters.
I can take you back in time, if that's what you truly want.
Should I be worried?
Jennifer, what are you doing? Guests are waiting. Who are you talking to?
I am your guardian angel.
Okay, before the show, I was listening to our four guests discuss, and it was like a high school reunion where people knew each other for a very long time, and the chemistry was amazing. So the last thing I want to do is to be too structural tonight and not make that chemistry flow out of our guests. But unfortunately, I have to pose some questions to get things going. So let me start with Cara. First,
Hi.
your Belizean heritage. I know that some or all of you are of Belizean parents. Some of you were born and raised in the United States. Cara, what has been your connection with Belize? How does that feel like? Explain it to us.
What does my connection feel like to Belize? Well, I mean, if I was born in Belize, I'd be a Belizean. I mean, both of my parents are from Belize. I'm very Belizean. Culturally, I'm very Belizean. And I mean, I went back to Belize every single year of my life until I was about 13, 14, when I was like, becoming a young adult, and things were really weird when you're like super, you're growing up, and I'm seeing myself, and it's very kind of weird. So I kind of don't want to see that. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So I feel very Belizean. I don't even know how to really answer this question.
Well, I suppose some of the things that Belizeans will do wherever they live, wherever they end up living is, you have the rice and beans on Sundays, and you have that call to grandma, and you have all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
I know how to cook. I know how to make potato salad.
There you go. There you go. Let me tell you, you beat me because I make a mess of it. Having said that, perhaps we should jump over to Chef Calvin Young. Calvin, you have some experience actually being in Belize some time ago, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to live in Placencia for a little while. I had started up what is now Young's Finger Licking Q. Shout out to my pops for doing that. I started at Spotter's Yard a few years ago and tried a little thing out there in Belize for a little bit.
That is perfect. And, it is something that we tell Belizeans, at least we try to tell Belizeans all the time, come home, take a break. And when you do come home, feel what Belize is like. It has changed over the years. Nia, I watched the movie on Sunday. I loved the movie. My wife and I watched the movie, and now we have encouraged our children to watch the movie. The message is important. I think in a world where people tend to be difficult with each other, where we don't always see the best side of each other, I think the movie and the message is spot on. Tell us a bit about your career, connection to Belize.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me this evening. Connection to Belize, although I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, let's be clear. I grew up in a Caribbean household. So outside was the US, inside my house was the Caribbean. So there is no separation for me between where I grew up and my heritage, because my parents made sure that I was very clear where I was from, who my people are. From a young age, I was going back to St. Vincent and Belize. One of the things that I really love is history. And so when we went to the Mayan ruins, from the time I think I was like 8 or 9, that had stuck with me, because I think of the Mayan ruins like people think about the Egyptian pyramids and how ahead of the game, like the fact that those things are still standing and people can't figure out how they made it is enough for me. So I'm very clear what I'm tied to, as well as on both sides in St. Vincent and Belize is the Garifuna heritage. So I'm very clear. So I walk with that all the time. So that's for starters. With my work, it's interesting because, I was the only actor in my family, so me making the departure, I went to school for business and marketing and was doing that, and then did a pivot into the field of entertainment, specifically acting, and I started in theater. And so for me, where my connection to that, I just love storytelling. But I'm very clear. Let's be clear about our people. We love to tell a good story. Like that is in the blood.
That we do. Absolutely.
So all the stories I've heard through my family over tea, bun and everything, like, listen, I was getting training from them. I haven't used anybody in my work yet, but best to believe I'm very clear that storytelling is part of our heritage. So I never felt like it was a huge departure. If anything, it was just a new world and figuring out where I fit into that. And for me, very quickly, I realized there aren't many roles in place specifically for Caribbean characters or Caribbean American in the US. I wasn't finding it, or just even the type of, what I want to say. So my evolution as an actor then went into writing, because I had things I want to say and that weren't really being written. And there was a lot of stereotypes about Black women and Black situations that I was like, I don't know, why are we still telling those stories? Like, we need a change. So that's how I started writing. It was really because if what I put out there and going into auditions, which is what you do as an actor, you go in and you audition for the role. If that is to be the thing that lets people know who I am, then I need to come with something that I feel represents me. And that's how I started writing. I would write things and just show up, give it a title, perform it, and then be like, oh yeah, I know, what play is that? I wrote it. You don't know what play it is. But that really came out of just wanting something that spoke authentically to me. And so with A New York Christmas Wedding, for me, with that story, the complexities in it about love, about the choices we make, about the decisions that we make that can change the course of our lives, the power of love. And then currently, there's certain people who feel like, who gets to say who gets to love? I personally believe love is love. So for me, being part of this story just was an extension of something I believe, but more importantly, with every role, in this film in particular with Jennifer, I was very clear about what I wanted to say and what I wanted to lead with her. And the biggest thing for me was heart and love, which is something I believe in and how I lead my life anyway. But the difference is her story is very much so hers. And I was very clear the amount of reverence and care that was needed for that story, as well as other characters and roles I've been in as well.
Well, I'll tell you something, Nia, and we might fight to the Vincentians over this, but we don't claim you. So we'll make that clear. And I'll tell you, you mentioned something about your Mayan heritage, about our Mayan heritage as Belizeans. And a part of that is the art that we see, the sculpture, the expression of our Mayan ancestors. But the other part that perhaps is not discussed as much as it should be is the precision, is the engineering, is the mathematics that went into all of that. And that leads me to bring our fourth guest into the discussion. Boy, Ravesh, you're a sharp man. I've been watching, I've been reading this, and I'll tell you, what I have read and what I have seen that you are participating in your career, what you're doing in your career, is something truly, truly important. Not only for yourself, but look at what we're living through right now with this COVID business. We need people that do the things that you do. Please tell us a little bit about what you do and what you want to do in this career, in this biomedical career of yours.
Sure. I think it's very relevant, and I think you brought up some good points with regards to some of the engineering achievements that some of these ancient civilizations have done. You look at like what the Mayans were able to do, what the Egyptians were able to do. It's stunning, right? I think what we've seen in more modern years is the ability for us to create things on a very small scale. And so that's why we have the revolution of the cellular phone. That's why you have the revolution of all these electronics. And so for the past 5 years, I've been working in the semiconductor industry where they have pioneered this ability to create very small electronic devices that can do some pretty remarkable things. And my current goal is to see how some of those experiences can be applied in the biomedical setting. Because as we can see with COVID, there's a huge need not to have just electronics for communication and for entertainment, but it also can play a role in terms of like disease detection, helping people who have maybe had some kind of spinal injury to regain some lost function. And so that's currently why I'm pivoting towards the biomedical field. I think it has a lot of benefits, not just for a developed country like America, but even in Belize, where our healthcare system may not necessarily be on par with something that a developed country has. Some of that technology could potentially help there as well. And so that's kind of why I'm interested in that field. And I think it definitely has a lot of relevance to Belizeans as well.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to make clear, we are interviewing 4 stars tonight, our Belizean stars, but stars in the biomedical area, in the food industry, and obviously in art and entertainment. So if we could do a show, each one of these people, we could do a show just for each and every one of these people. But this is a show about your Belizeanness and how does it connect. So it is my job to try to have that discussion. Let me go back to, and I'll open up the floor. How has the dinner table discussion that has centered around your Belizeanness, and anybody can jump in, how has that made a difference in your career? Who wants to go? Cara? Is it Cara? Go ahead, Cara.
Yeah. So, you know, as a first, well, you know, it's interesting because I've had discussions about the fact that I'm a first generation American person. And I feel like there are so many, like, structurally, as a Caribbean woman, I have been taught how to do like everything correct, right? And there is a navigating of different worlds because I am this Caribbean woman, but then I walk into this America and I was raised by America as well. And so it has a lot, like, I feel like there's an interesting duality to navigating the world as a Caribbean woman through America. Does that make any sense? And it's sort of like actually like becoming different people, like what we say, like what we call here, like code switching. Like, I know how to do that very, very, very well. But in regards to my Caribbeanness and at the dinner table and the discussions about being Caribbean, I feel like there's so much pride being a Caribbean woman, being a Belizean woman. You know, my grandfather is one of the pioneers, I believe, in technology in Belize, David Jenkins. And the fact that he made television available to poor people at one point in Belize is such a huge part of my existence because I'm now in this industry. And I feel like that's like sort of an intrinsic thing that I carry with me through him and his revolutionary stance and the theater that I'm a part of I'm a part of the theater community as well in New York. And the Black theater that I'm a part of is very revolutionary to me. It's really changing the conversations around consciousness and Black humanity. And I feel like that's most definitely an extension of David E.A. Jenkins, for sure.
Right, and now his granddaughter some people might see his granddaughter on those very same screens, a technology that he helped bring to Belize. Another aspect of Belizeanness, if you will, is that tenacity that we've had. I mean, this country was settled by people that just, you know, would not give up, whether it's a swamp or a jungle. a couple hundred years ago, it doesn't matter whether you were brought here against your will or you ended up here in a difficult situation. We made this place our home. And you come from tough and good stock. In business, in the entrepreneurial area, that must play a role. That must have been fed down through the generations. How does that work in the, shall we say, cutthroat or very competitive area of the culinary industry? How does that affect what you do, Calvin?
Well, I'll tell you this, right? For me, one thing I must say is that I didn't go to school for the food. I went to school for business, that type of thing. The food has just always been in me. I mean, my dad, my great-granddad, my granddad, we got our own barbecue sauce that we've been making. If you've been to Bird's Eye, then you've had family food already, and everyone's been to Bird's Eye down there. To my own mentor. I got a mentor up in New York, my Uncle Clay, who taught me how to cook pretty. I mean, from my mom to everyone around me that's been Belizean, I mean, they have a hand in everything that I've made in the kitchen. It's the reason why when I made a decision, which I still miss, and I will return back one day to open up in Placencia for a while. And I started out there just with a grill, some recipes, and I just understand what good food tastes like, and that comes from the Belizean that's inside of me. Because one thing we know in Belize, we know some good food. We know how to tear it up in the kitchen. So, I mean, everything that I do on the plate, I mean, you're tasting the heritage, the history. It's allowed me to have a little bit of an edge because, it's not like Belizean cuisine is a major cuisine up here. But what I've been able to do is just use my influence to make, because I cook all kinds of food, from Asian food to various Caribbean style of food to American food. But the difference is always going to be is that there's something from my Belize heritage, from our seasonings to whatever we do, is going to reflect in my food that I do.
As an interesting aside, today is my son's 16th birthday. And guess what the man woke up to this morning? Meat pies. So I hear you. There is something unique. There is something unique about Belizean cuisine. There is something, of course, unique about the Belizean character. And tenacity is one. The flavor is another one. You just discussed that, Calvin. Nia, the tenacity, the flavor, the heritage. How does it impact your career now as a professional, as somebody navigating an industry that has been in the spotlight for some difficult things recently? How has it helped you? Have there been areas where it has been a plus? Have there been areas where it is a minus? Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, tenacity is always a plus. And I will say, I absolutely think being Caribbean, being Belizean, it's in the blood. It's in the blood to find a way, to make your way, to create, to invent, to make do what you have, to take what you have and make it better or find something else, right? So for me, I grew up seeing that, similar when Kara was telling her story, I think about, I hadn't really put the connection between my grandfather, in Belize and him having a radio station and letting everybody know that hurricane, I believe it was Hattie was coming, or maybe, don't get me wrong, which hurricane it was. I don't want to quote the wrong thing.
And there have been many.
But he had a radio and was warning people. And that him having that allowed him to help other people. And for me, it's interesting because right now, with everything that's changing, with everyone having to work from home or different productions and stuff, I am now recording from my home, which is like having my own radio station in a way. Although it's not a station, but I could, right? I technically could do a podcast, but I say that all to say, we've always had to pivot. We've always had to make do with, or create. And I definitely see that throughout our culture, throughout our heritage, definitely within my own family and from other people. And it's only been a plus, to be quite honest. I've never, if anyone felt it was not okay, I came into this not knowing the rules. So I didn't know at times I was breaking rules. I didn't know that. I didn't know that people didn't write their own monologues and come in and perform it. I didn't know that. I was just like, what you are saying or what's out there doesn't represent me fully. And I'm going to write it. And then it became, oh, you also write? And I was like, oh, well, here we have a new opening. Now, that was just me doing what I've seen, what I know. And I think some of it is just innate, but it's definitely been modeled. And I think whenever I think of Belize, even though I'm here in the US, I personally, I don't see the separation. I think there's so much that can still be created and done in Belize as we are doing here in LA. Things might be different, but Belize is not short of history or stories to be told. I think where it is the value in that, and that is yet to be tapped. That is yet to be tapped. And when I talk about the Mayans and Agarifanas, because we do have the celebration in Belize in November, that to retain that bit of history for all these years and not lose it is golden, golden. To have the Mayan ruins in your backyard is golden. To have that heritage there is golden in a way that here in the US, you know, folks are trying to hold on to different things, but it's right there in Belize. It's still there. And as a culture, it was kept. Like you were saying, even though people came, fine, that happened in history, but we didn't lose that. And for me, no matter what space I'm in, I walk in as a Caribbean woman first. So if they ask, oh, where are you from? My family's from Belize. My mom is from St. Vincent. I grew up in New York. And I make it very clear, you know, I have no hesitation about saying that. I don't hide it at all. I actually see it as an entry point for a conversation, to be quite honest. And I think the benefit of knowing I was here in the US, but my family is in Belize, I grew up knowing this is not the world. The US is not the world. I grew up knowing that. I grew up knowing, oh, there's stuff over there, guys. So when friends here are all like, you know, America is it and this is it, I was like, I got options. So I was always very clear. So for me, I was always well aware that although there's wonderful opportunities in the US, it's not the end all be all. There's a whole world outside of here that's rich. And a lot of the different cultures that are here in the US is what makes the US wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about, you know, we spoke about our tenacity, we spoke about the flavors. Belize comes in different colors and flavors. We spoke about what's happening in COVID and the opportunities that exist. Technology is one of those opportunities. Technology is one of those bridges that we talk about. Ravesh, you are in the area of technology. What do you see? Do you see any low-hanging fruit that you would encourage young Belizeans that they should embrace? What do you see something for them to embrace that that is at the cusp of the next leap so that we do not miss out as Belizeans? What advice would you give?
Sure. I think there are two aspects that I'd like to address briefly. I think the first one would be taking advantage of the technology at our fingertips, because, you know, like we all use cellular phones and it's becoming very prevalent that even young kids are very proficient in using the different apps on a cellular phone, even in Belize. And I think the next stage of our evolution as a country is being able to not just consume those applications, but also be able to create that. So I think a foundation in computer coding that starts at a very young age, that just gets some exposure to students so they can understand some of the basic concepts and consider using those concepts later on if they want to create their own app is very useful for us, because then we no longer are just going to be beholden to using Twitter, using Facebook, but we can then create our own things that are relevant to Belizeans, right? We can create our own websites that can market Belizean products, Belizean businesses to other Belizeans, and that way, you know, we control our own destiny from that aspect. So I think that is something that we immediately can start getting on the ball, getting young kids trained on, and so I think that's one aspect. The second aspect is in terms of manufacturing. I think if you look at every large country, they produce a lot of goods, they produce a lot items that other countries want to purchase. And I think one of the barriers for us is that it takes millions of dollars to create those kinds of manufacturing plants. But recently, 3D printing, which is something I'm very passionate about, which I think is a really good learning tool, as well as a good tool for that could be in the future. I think that could help bridge that gap between something that would cost millions of dollars to put in. You could have something that is much less cost that you can use to manufacture very simple items that you otherwise would have to import or buy from other countries. And so I think those two things, one is being proficient in software and computer coding, and the second one, having flexible manufacturing. I think those two things could be of tremendous benefit to Belize in the next coming years and the next coming decades.
You know, Ravesh, you hit the nail on the head in several ways. Certainly, I think what COVID has shown us all is, some of the weaknesses that we have, structural weaknesses, clearly. And please, I don't want to get letters from people on this. We're not saying that tourism is not important, but we are, I think, seeing very clearly that we need to diversify the economy. Certainly, the type of manufacturing that you are talking about is one thing that we must explore. And the other thing I hear you saying is, kids, stop looking at a cell phone as just a cell phone. It's a powerful tool. It's a flattener. But before we continue the conversation, we have to take a short break. We have another edition of Belize Classifieds to share. This is a quick listing of Belizean-owned business and service providers abroad.
Belize's dynamic diaspora spans the world, and many Belizeans have set up businesses serving as ambassadors of our warm hospitality, flavors, and get-it-done attitude. When you are in the United States, there are scores of Belizean-owned businesses. Here are a few you should look out for. In Virginia, there are Sophie's Cleaning Service, PC Catering Services, Rice Bun Production, and Dream Finish Auto Repair. In Maryland, you can look out for Belize Auto Repair if you ever need auto care services. Visiting Atlanta, Beauty's Key has lovely handcrafted jewelry, and so does Danny Main style over in New Orleans. If you are ever in Colorado Springs, Be Belize Company Limited is a good choice if you are looking for jewelry. Supporting Belizean-owned businesses in the diaspora contributes to strong Belizean communities abroad, and it also trickles down to Belizean communities back home.
Okay, welcome back. We were talking about business, we were talking about development, we were talking about industry. I don't quite want to leave that. And I know, Calvin, you certainly have come home and you have tried it. But also, and let me talk now to our guests who are on the art side, to both Cara and Nia. Are there any opportunities that you see in art that may bridge Belize and Belizean Americans? How can we take advantage of the ruins, the fact that we have a rich and vibrant Garifuna culture, the rich and vibrant Mayan tradition, rich and vibrant traditions from India, now from China, from our Mennonite communities. We have a plethora of different communities in Belize. How do we take advantage of that? Cara?
How do we take advantage of it? Well, as
from
a
an
person,
art point of view, from a link point of view, Belize, US.
Right. So as a person who is of the theater, first of all, I cannot wait to go back to Belize right now. That's number one. Number two, I've always had this idea of bringing theater and my kind of theater over to Belize. And I've always felt like I had something to offer the arts in that regard. And because you mentioned the Mayan ruins, and because you mentioned just all of beautiful Belize, which I've had the honor of and the pleasure of traveling and seeing all of those beautiful places. What we do in here in America, at times, like with my theater company, for example, we'll go on a retreat and we will, create art, and it would be like a week dedicated to art. And I wonder like what that looks like if the performance might be on or close to in honoring Mayan traditions for like through them, through the history of the Mayans. I have Mayan mestizo blood as well, and so I honor that at all times. But I feel like there's a beautiful opportunity to truly explore the different places in Belize with a traveling company of artists who want to build and travel and take these stories that, the beautiful Caribbean stories that Nia mentioned, like that haven't been told through actually Belizean children, through Belizean teenagers, through Belizean young adults. And I feel like sometimes those are the most powerful voices. And the young people should definitely be heard. And how more important to be heard artistically and creatively. One of the things that I feel like, for example, in New York, sort of ruined the public educational system was the fact that they took away the art programs from our schools. And it's just so important for young children, especially young children who are of African descent, who are of all of these multicultural descents, to express themselves through song, through dance, through acting. But I feel like that would be quite amazing to do sort of a intensive retreat through the Mayan temples, traveling performance.
Right, and the market loves a good ending. The market loves that the good ones always win, right? We have so much of that in Belize. If you look at Belizean history.
I also, sorry, sir. I'm sure there's so many amazing art programs in Belize. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something I don't know that I want to know more about. I want to invest in that. I want to invest my time and energy in building upon that. But that's something that I'm very interested in.
And we would certainly welcome that. But what I was about to say was that, Belize and the history of this small little country that against many, many odds ended up being what we are today. And we're not perfect, but for goodness sakes, we get a lot of things get done correctly in Belize. Not perfectly, because we're human after all, but we get a lot of things done well, to the point that thousands upon thousands of people from the United States, from Europe, from Canada, from many different places want to come and live in Belize and are coming to live in Belize. So there are many good stories to tell. Nia, you're in the storytelling business. Is there something you see there? Do you see an opportunity there? Do you see anything that can be used? Have you thought of this?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One of the key things for people bringing productions, like if they wanted to film in Belize, would be to know clearly what the tax incentives are, right? So like to film in LA and New York is more expensive than to film in, say, New Orleans or Atlanta, Georgia, right? As a result, more filming happens in Atlanta and New Orleans than LA when it comes to TV shows in the last 5 years. So what I would say with the Film Commission in Belize is to really see where that sweet spot is and really push it and let people know. Because Belize is not that far of a trip for people to go from LA. And really to showcase the variety of the diversity of not only the landscape. When I think about, if you think about genres, if it's like a thriller or some kind of thing, people are we don't want to associate Belize with this, but people use it as the backdrop, like people are away and something happens. We have so many beautiful rainforests, so many resorts that could be used for that. Let's be clear, Belize was the first place with reality TV. I forget what the name of the show is right now, but it was Temptation Island. So let's be clear, Belize set that off. Since then, there has been countless of contestant reality shows, and that happened because there was a writer's strike here in the US. The writers weren't writing, the networks needed to have shows done. They decided, let's just do something without it being scripted, and they didn't want to get fined or come into like issues with the unions here. So they took it overseas with non-union actors, made a show, and that has set the model for TV since then. That was the spawn of reality TV. So I say that all to say, understand the role we've already played in this industry. We aren't the ones who are behind. Let's be clear. The US and everywhere else looks at different places to see what can be the next big thing. You know, that's how our industry works. So I would say Film Commission, really think about what those tax incentives are. Even if you come in a little bit less than Los Angeles, look at what's happening in Hawaii is used often for a lot of like new, like Hawaii 5-0. There's a show that I'm blanking on right now. It's kind of also like a cop show, CSI, but they were going to do it in the Caribbean and they were set to have it in Belize. So all these franchise shows are looking for different locations. So I would say it's just highlighting the diverse scenarios and genres of film that can be shot, that we could do period pieces in Belize because there's certain areas that haven't been completely modernized and people are building sets to make it look like parts of Belize. If you could say, hey, just come down, we already got it set up, you know? And that means people being willing to offer up their business, their restaurant, whatever, for a period of time of filming. You know, that looks like Belizeans partnering and making that package deal. You know, you can film at this restaurant here, but you're gonna stay at this hotel over here, you know, and really think about the offerings that we have.
We have the real deal, Nia. We have the real deal, exactly. And sorry to interrupt, but in this industry, I've been told we have to pay the bills. So with that said, we'll go for tonight's first ad break, and we will be right back. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Dialogue with the Diaspora. Joining us virtually this evening are four Belizean creatives, ambassadors in their own right: Cara Young, Nia Fairweather, Ravesh Suknandan, and Calvin Young. Folks, we are exceedingly proud of you as Belizeans, and we certainly wish you the best in your career. Now, we're getting towards the latter part of the show, and we certainly want to give you a space to talk to younger Belizeans. Not only younger Belizeans in Belize, that is of course important. My own children will be watching this show, and I want you to talk to them and to the thousands of Belizean children throughout Belize, but also to the Belizean children, or to those Belizean youngsters that are of Belizean parents, whether they are in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Toronto, or London. It really doesn't matter. Please, could you think of what would you tell them, since you have been through this journey yourselves? Let us start with Ravesh.
Sure. So I would say to young Belizeans coming up and to individuals of Belizean heritage, I would say that one of the things that I'm always proud of with Belize is just how inclusive we are. I think, like, you know, America is having lived here, they're trying to have that concept of inclusivity. But I've always said that in Belize, that for whatever reason, it's not perfect, but we seem to have a better grasp of what it means to include different cultures and respect other cultures. So I think that is really important to grasp. And I think that can be the foundation of real collaboration, because in modern society, no one person is an island. And so being able to collaborate across cultures, across countries, across different disciplines is really important. So that's one thing I would say. And the other thing I would say again would be that I think there's not to push STEM, but I would say there are a lot of benefits to pursuing a career in STEM, which is science, technology, education, and engineering and mathematics. And I think that even if it's not necessarily to become an engineer, but maybe it's more to become like a computer developer, a software developer, I think those things have immense practicality and use for the country. And I think what you'll see is that combining that with the artistic background that a lot of Belizeans have innately is really where we can make a big difference. And so I would just like to say that if anyone has any, wants any guidance, wants to pick my brain on any of my experiences here in America, working for a technology company and through my education, they're always welcome to reach me. My email is quantumrav@gmail.com, quantumrav@gmail.com. I'm always willing to help anyone that needs guidance, needs any technical assistance. So yeah, please reach out.
Excellent. And it certainly means a lot to our youngsters when they hear it to someone from you who it's not only walking the walk, it's not only talking the talk, it's walking the walk. And I think that is very, very important. Calvin, what would you say to our Belizean young people, wherever they may be?
You know what? This journey is not an easy journey, all right? Just in general, all right? It's going to be discouraging. A lot of people are going to tell you what you should be doing, what you can't do, X, Y, and Z, where you should be headed to. Just find what you love and just focus on it. And I guarantee you, no matter when you get there, it'll be the most enjoyable journey that you're going to have, for the main fact that you just went after what you wanted from the get-go. That's the best thing I can tell you, because it's been a crazy journey since I started cooking and following the cooking path. It brought me to Belize, it brought me back to Florida. I was even up in New York for a little bit. I've learned a lot, because everywhere you go, you learn. It's learning experience. And everything that you learn can be reflected through whatever you're doing. So in this case, everything that I've learned, every journey I've done, I get to reflect through my food. And it's been a great experience. And that's what life is all about, just making great memories and great experiences.
Calvin, though, since you are perhaps the only one of our 4 guests who had the opportunity to come home and to try to do something, what kinds of developments or changes would you like to see in Belize to make our country more attractive/receptive for young Belizeans in the diaspora? To not only stay connected, but to actually come back here and invest and to try something?
You know what? I have to say that I think it just lies like in a marketing standpoint, because there's a lot of, once you're there is actually a lot of different things that we as American Belizeans can do down there. It's just kind of like a marketing, kind of like what she's mentioned about the incentives with the Film Institute, just kind of coming up with almost like a package or like an idea of, some good reasons to, I'll tell you this, I cannot wait to go back home again. It was a shot in the dark. My dad told me I should try it. I went down there. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. Anywhere, was living in Belize and working. I got to know a lot of people, locals, non-locals, everyone. One thing about being in Belize is just like everyone just feels like they're family and they belong there. You don't know, it's like everything is just shades of gray.
Yeah.
Shades of gray now.
I'll get into a lot of trouble with my friends from Placencia, but Calvin, next time come na kayo, man. You see that's what we need for though. But let me ask Cara and Nia the same question, because I think that's important in terms of what developments or changes. What would you like to see on the ground? Dream with us. What would you like to see on the ground to make our country more attractive for young Belizeans to invest time, to invest effort, to have some kind of bridge that brings them back to Belize, or even reside here? Cara?
I mean, I feel like that answer will continue to evolve. I truly believe in the young people. I believe in young people. I believe in young people's voices. And I feel like they can make a difference in the way Belize looks. And I feel like what I would tell young Belizeans, because I'll go back to your first question and maybe it'll evolve into an answer to answer your second one. But I think it's really important to really access your authentic self at all times. I think it's important to allow yourself the permission to evolve, to get better, to continue to find your truth, to express yourself, express. Be creative, even if you're not a creative. Attempt to be creative, because it's something that comes from you. It's not in a book, it's from you. And it's important, and it's intrinsic, and it's ancestral, and it's real. And I'm currently in a movie called Chemical Hearts. It's on Amazon Prime. You can go and check it out if you like. And honestly, I know right now in this time, this unrest of the world is it's a trying time for young people. And if you need to speak to someone, reach out, talk to someone. Mental health is a huge thing for me. I really truly believe in seeking help if you need it. And I know that those conversations are changing, but I advocate for mental health all over. But what I would want it to look like, I think Belize is really, really beautiful. And I think that it's going to evolve in the way that it will, in all of its glory and all of its beauty. And I hope to be a part of that evolution for sure.
And we would certainly love to have you to be a part of that, a continued part of that evolution. Nia, I asked the question earlier in terms of the opportunities that if you could wave a magic wand and you could say, listen, we really should look into this and this and that. I know you mentioned a couple of things earlier. What else would you add to that list?
So on two parts, I would say for the young people in Belize, and however you define young to me could be 65. So whatever age you are, I will say this. Right now, COVID has flattened a lot of barriers. We are here in the US, is the same thing that's happening in Belize. People are having to figure out how to do what we do from where they are, with less resources, with less access. So right now, I want to eliminate this idea that Belize doesn't have the same access as we do. Right now, there's a lot of people in LA and in the US who would love to be in Belize, to be by the ocean, to just have that nature there. So I want to start by saying Belize is not less than the US, in my opinion, at all. Two, if you have a cell phone, you have a camera. The reason why Spike Lee is amazing and who he is, he literally told the stories of what he was seeing in Brooklyn. You know, all of the filmmakers, all of the artists that we love, whose work we watch, they were writing about where they're from. They're not writing about somewhere over there. So I say that all to say, wherever you live in Belize, be it Placencia, Cayo, Belize City, Belmopan, wherever, there are stories there. So find your crew of friends who have like minds, and y'all want to create something, create it. For Ordeal, for me, I literally was a group of friends and we shot that. I wrote it. I had a friend who was a director because I was with him. You know, I was in his film. I reached out to a guy who did sound on something else I was in, and we came together and shot something. Absolutely, no matter what, which was a show in Belize, was a huge hit amongst the Caribbean community here in the US. So I say that all to say the stories are there. The technology. So whether if you have a cell phone, if you have the internet right now, I would say, Anansi TV, because that was one of the things about where do Caribbean creatives are. They showcase a lot of work from the Caribbean. Know that film festivals, every film festival in the US or abroad that says international, means that you can submit your film or your project there. So shoot it, and however you want to do it. Podcast is a big thing now. If you have an iPhone, if you have any phone, if you have a radio station, if you have any kind of something that can record, you can also have a podcast. There's so many things. It could be news. There's so many people that are yearning for things. So we're not short of opportunities. So, and if you don't have the technology, say your household don't have Wi-Fi, you don't have a cell phone, write your play, sell it.
Absolutely.
Write the story and you can sell it to somebody else. So that's just from a creative standpoint. From a business and situation, for me, it's just knowing who to talk to. I think it would be great to have some kind of forum or conference, or even if it's a day-long thing where a few of us can get together with the locals or who are decision makers in Belize and bring in, different people and talk about what the opportunities are. Because I think just like Calvin, Ravesh, and even Kara was saying, there's so much overlapping that can happen. I think for me, it's just not knowing who to talk to and where that's happening. Because I do think if we knew the collaborations, we totally would. Because let's believe there's Netflix, there's Hulu, there's so many platforms looking for content. And so content is king right now. And Belize definitely, I think, could be at the forefront of that. And let it be clear, people are already stealing the sounds and the music. All the top songs right now got Caribbean flavors in it, let's be clear. A producer right now is sampling from the Diaspora collective. I had to hit him on Instagram, be like, you know where that came from? So we need people also making sure that Belizean content isn't being siphoned without their awareness,
That's a very, very good point, or else we all lose. Guys, we're getting to the last few seconds of our show. So quickly, I'm going to ask you all on the lighter side, when you think of Belize, what do you think about? Seriously. 7 seconds. Ravesh, go.
Rice and beans and meat pie.
Calvin.
Calvin's muted.
We didn't get that, Calvin. I think your mic was off. Kara.
Salbutes!
Salbutes. All right, Nia.
I'll say I'm there with meat pies, coconut tarts, fried jack, and the beach, man. Take me to Placencia, any beach, I am good.
I hear you're here. Let's try Calvin one last time. Is your mic on?
No.
No.
Calvin, turn your mic off. Okay.
Oh, my bad. Listen, it's got to be Young's Barbecue over there in Placencia, the water,
right.
And nothing complete without a trip to Birdseye over there in City.
That's right,
Calvin.
Calvin.
And with those words, let us thank you all once again for joining us. Thank our guests for joining us. Thank our viewers for joining us. And with that, we have come to the end of our final show in the series called Dialogue with the Diaspora. We expect to be back in the future. But for now, we thank you for watching us over the past 4 weeks. It has been a thrill to showcase the incredible talent that Belize has abroad. And we are exceedingly proud of those Belizeans that live in our diaspora and in many ways contribute to the development of Belize. These people have served as an informal network of ambassadors that continue to put Belize on the map. We hope this show has encouraged new partnerships between persons at home and abroad, and a better understanding and appreciation of our shared values, shared struggles, and shared hopes for the betterment of this jewel we call Belize. Viewers, do enjoy the rest of the night. Continue to show social distance, wear your face mask, and be ever vigilant. Until I see you again, good evening and take care.